Hey, what's up everyone, DREAGEN back again, here to tell you that you should be watching Godzilla. So Godzilla, or rather the 2014 Godzilla, is a, 2014 kaiju film directed by Gareth Edwards, who prior to that was kind of known for the indie kaiju flick Monsters. And basically Godzilla is essentially a kind of not a rebranding, but essentially kind of what jump-started Godzilla back up into the mainstream. Why Godzilla is now kind of, again, a household name. Why, Toho produced Shin Godzilla. Why we're getting now a sequel to this film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, followed thereafter by Godzilla vs. Kong, and we have the Monsterverse now. It all kind of started with this film. And this is the first Godzilla film produced since Final Wars, when Godzilla was put back into retirement. So it's a milestone film in the sense that it led to Godzilla really being introduced to a whole new generation, and people of an older generation kind of really coming to discover who Godzilla really is, having perhaps known about him more just in passing through, the kind of the pop culture ethos, so to speak, but really now understanding him as a character a lot more. Now, there is a bit of contention with this film, primarily in the way Gareth Edwards approached making this movie, that is to kind of hide Godzilla and tease Godzilla to essentially the end of the film, where it's the final bout between Godzilla and these creatures known as mutos, which is massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, even though one of them can fly. And essentially, this film does kind of introduce this whole kind of this secret government organization called Monarch, who was founded upon the discovery of Godzilla in 1954. So this film does harken back to the 54 mythology, although in this version, rather than Godzilla making landfall in Tokyo, he never got that far. He discovered that all the hydrogen bomb tests in the South Pacific were in fact attempts to kill him. And that the government has known about him all this time, and basically been trying to find him ever since. And in 2014, he resurfaces, reemerges, and basically the whole world kind of discovers that Godzilla, and by and large Kaiju, exist, or as they're now calling them in the cinematic universe, Titans. But yeah, so Gareth Edwards' approach to this film is kind of really a slow burn. And what director Michael Dougherty of the new Godzilla film basically kind of described as such, as kind of like if his film, which looks like it's to be much more action-packed at the time of the recording of this movie, is not yet out, so I have not seen it. But if this film was more akin to Aliens, he kind of described Gareth Edwards' film as more of Alien. And that is very much true. The Edwards' style of filmmaking harkens back to kind of an older time in filmmaking where you could have big budget tentpole films that were much slower in nature, and in reality the original 1954 Godzilla was a much slower film, where Godzilla was honestly teased throughout most of the movie, and much like the 2014 counterpart, we didn't really see much of him until more towards the end of the movie. It is a style of filmmaking that is not as common today, at least again not with big budget films, so for a lot of people it left them wanting more, but that's the key point. They wanted more. And the main thing about that is that when we did see Godzilla, when we finally were given Godzilla, it was amazing. It was fantastic. It felt like Godzilla, but now in a film that utilized modern filmmaking techniques. Godzilla, who probably to a lot of people felt like it was this retro, dare I say even passe thing, not to people like me or the kaiju fans, but just kind of the general going public, now saw this classic icon of cinema brought to life in a modern cinematic landscape, and felt very much a part of it without having to sacrifice that which made Godzilla who he is as a character. The other thing this film does very well is that it kind of shows how the real world would react if something as unbelievable as Godzilla was real. Like we know we live in a world where kaiju don't exist. Things like that aren't real. We know that. But what if they were? What if, as unbelievable and as shocking as a concept it is, you turned on the news and there it is on, primetime news. There is a giant monster. Godzilla is rising out of the San Francisco Bay, destroying the Golden Gate Bridge and stomping across San Francisco while battling another giant monster. How would we react to? How would we as a society respond to being confronted by something that not only in and of itself is shocking, but would essentially make us question everything we thought was possible in life? This would turn everything on its head. It would, shift the balance of power. Governments would change their focus on what's important, what matters, because now they would be confronted by a threat so powerful, so awesome, that it kind of lumps everyone together. I've always said we are all equal in Godzilla's shadow. He does not care whether you're American, Japanese, Russian, Chinese. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe in, what system of government you are under. Godzilla does not care, and this is this force of nature that if it comes ashore in your neighborhood, it will do to your neck of the woods what it will do to any other. It does not matter. Everything that you feel defines you, it makes you significant or makes you right, really doesn't count for anything when something like Godzilla shows up. And that's kind of what this film does really well. It shows just how unprepared we are for something like this, and how kind of caught unawares we would be. Because again, we are committed to ourselves to having this understanding of what can and cannot be. So when we are confronted by something not just shocking, but something that we have resigned ourselves to believing is impossible, we kind of don't know what to do with ourselves. And again, I'm speaking of the general public. Obviously, the government has been using this secret organization to kind of, further their understanding and knowledge, and more importantly, trying to keep the existence of these creatures under wraps. Because again, power in terms of, power in the hands of a nation would be kind of a moot point. Because again, it doesn't matter who has more nukes than the other people. It doesn't matter which country has a stronger economy. All of that can be just undone in a single Godzilla rampage. So it's a situation where the governments that are aware of this are all working together, ironically, to kind of keep this under wraps. It is perhaps this global coalition to kind of keep these creatures secret from the world that is essentially what really prevents, the world from engaging in all-out war. On the surface, in terms of the public eye, yes, there's saber rattling, there's posturing, there's, we're the good guys, we don't trust those guys, and vice versa. But behind the cameras, we're all kind of shaking hands together, just kind of realize that we're all keeping up the act, because the reality is we're all in this together. That, if one of these titans, or as they're known in this film, the Mutos, because at the time they haven't given them like this cooler designation, arise, we're all equally doomed, and it's kind of up to everyone to do something about the situation. So it's a film that kind of gives a very realistic portrayal of kind of, a modern day response, from the society, like a public that is caught seemingly unaware. And that's kind of what you see this film from the perspective of, like, a soldier played by Aaron Taylor Johnson who is trying to get back to his family. And again, some of the point of contention was that we didn't focus on the scientists more, the people of Monarch, the people who study Godzilla, but rather be focused more on kind of like the everyman, so to speak. But the pro to doing that is that this film does give us a unique perspective into what that's like. Yes, I much prefer to follow the scientists and people who get paid to study these things, but that's nothing new in a Godzilla film. We've seen that a lot. This film does a good job of really showing, like, all right, this is just a regular person who happens to be in the military, but otherwise is not really affiliated with this. His father, played by Bryan Cranston, is the one who kind of believed there was something more going on. But beyond him, everybody else involved is kind of just like, okay, we're just trying to figure it out. So when you see, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, kind of reacting to this and seeing that he's not looking at it from a perspective of ooh and awe or intrigue, he is kind of seeing what the average person would see, and that is, monsters are real. Giant monsters are real, and they're attacking, and there's nothing we can do about it. And all he wants to do is keep his family safe, because at that point, you kind of just fall back on just kind of very primal directives: survive and help your loved ones survive. you just have to just kind of get out of the way. We are, insects scurrying beneath their feet. We're not going to do anything to them. We just got to hope we're still around when they're done doing whatever it is they're doing. So it is a very kind of humbling narrative in terms of where it puts us on kind of the evolutionary ladder, that once these creatures reemerge, we are no longer the dominant species on the planet. And in fact, we really never were. It was just more or less a situation of, the cat's away, the mouse will play. And the biggest, baddest mouse is no different than the smallest one to a cat. Same thing with us. The most powerful government in the world may as well be some tiny little third world country, in the presence of Godzilla or some other large kaiju. It really doesn't matter at that point. So this film, while yes, it is lighter on action, if you're looking for more of a spectacle film, especially a spectacle Godzilla film, you might be left kind of wanting a little bit, and it's understandable. And again, but I tell people, if you go into this movie knowing what to expect, and by now most people know that this film is kind of the tease a little bit movie. So if you understand that you're going to see more of a drama than so much of an action film, it's much more of a drama with kaiju than it is a straight up, action kaiju spectacle. So if you go in there knowing that and understand you're going to be seeing a film that's more akin to Alien or Jaws or John Carpenter's The Thing, in terms of kind of slow-moving stories, where it builds up tension, it builds up suspense, and casts the title character Godzilla in a more mystifying light. We're there kind of left to look at this being, this god of the ancient world, more with mystery rather than trying to understand, because that's kind of how humanity has always seen Godzilla, this mysterious thing that is kind of really beyond us. And that's what the portrayal that Gareth Edwards takes in this film. So if you understand that and you're a fan of these other kinds of films, I think you'll really appreciate that. And because Godzilla's history is 65 years long, different filmmakers are going to try different things with it. So we've had big action spectacle Godzilla films, and we've had campier ones, we've had dark, serious film noir ones, and we've had more kind of introspective ones like this. The franchise has kind of run the gambit and probably will continue to do so. So I would say take this film for what it is. Take it, understand, what its place as an entry to this franchise is. It's not the end-all be-all of Godzilla films. It's not meant to be, that's it, this is what they've all led up to. It's just another type of Godzilla story you can tell. And it does, again, a very good job of painting something like this in a very realistic light. Something that is, again, inherently unrealistic. And kind of just saying, having fun with the notion of, okay, but let's just, what if it actually happened? Forget how outlandish it sounds. What if a 300 and plus foot radioactive dinosaur just rose out of the water and just started stomping a city into the ground? What would we do? What would you do? How would you react? How would you deal with it? Just never mind whether you're in that city or not, but just to now realize that you live in a world where Godzilla is real. What does that do to you as a person? And how will that change you as a person? And how will that change your whole outlook on life when you realize that there's no government in the world that can effectively keep you safe if Godzilla ultimately wants to lay waste to your little corner of the world. So for that reason alone, I'm recommending Godzilla, the 2014 film, the first film that is now part of what is called the Monsterverse. If you've seen it, please let me know what you think. Give me some of your thoughts. And I'll say that with a bit of a caveat. I understand that for a lot of people, the not seeing Godzilla enough was a big deal. And while I liked the slow burn, I liked the tease. Even I will admit there was a point where I felt like where they started just showing him without any cutaways. Should have happened a little bit sooner in the film. But regardless of that, I feel everyone has kind of said their piece in terms of that part of it. So besides that element, what did you think of the movie itself? What did you think of how the movie was shot, how it was directed? How did you feel about, again, this approach to telling a very realistic reactionary story with Godzilla? If you have not seen the film, as always, I will leave links in the description section below where you can pick it up, check it out, give it a watch, come back, give me some of your thoughts. If you haven't seen it yet and you're gearing up to see Godzilla King of the Monsters, you should watch it for that reason alone. But yeah, it's interesting for another reason. It's going to go down in history as being the Godzilla film that really reinvigorated the franchise again, that brought it back. So regardless of how frustrated or not frustrated you may have been with it, it did its job in terms of bringing Godzilla back into the public eye, so to speak. So it will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason, because it is the reason why now that I'm talking to people who otherwise would never even be talking about Godzilla and having conversation about them and having them ask me questions and taking an interest and becoming fans of the character because they were introduced to this character in a film that was very modern, very contemporary, but still depicted the Godzilla that us fans have always known and loved. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace!